Ask Mike, brought to you by the Stadium Shop on Razorback in Fayetteville.
Happy Monday, everybody. It's time for another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. Mike, how was your Easter?
I don't know. You were here.
Yeah, true. We worked together.
We were working all day long. That was our Easter.
That was our Easter. We had a great Easter working together, Mike. But we have a lot of questions to answer this week, so let's jump right in. Our first one is from H.L. McCamish, who says, is Ole Miss getting better? Did we overlook them, or are we just not that good? We just barely escaped with a series win over the last place team in the SEC.
Okay, I don't know if it's a he or a she, H.L. McCamish, but I think they are the ones that overlooked Ole Miss. I don't think Arkansas did. Look, here's the thing. Ole Miss is the last place team in the entire SEC. They have the worst, so they're number 14, right?
Yes,
So
they're dead last.
Let's just figure the West. Arkansas's first now. See, we get this question, and they just moved into first place in the West. And the fans going, well, what's wrong here? Okay. So you got the first place team in the West, you got the 7th place team in the West. There's not a dime's worth of difference in them statistically. Ole Miss bats better, Ole Miss has a better fielding percentage, Arkansas has a better team ERA. So they're very similar. And you were playing at Ole Miss. Ole Miss loves to beat Arkansas, Arkansas loves to beat Ole Miss. So you're going to get that kind of series. If you thought because they were 1-8 going in, that you were going to just waltz right through this and get a sweep. As a fan, I promise you, the players never thought that, because they know that Ole Miss can hit. They can hit for power. The pitching isn't horrible. They've got some pitchers that are pretty good, and that was a gut check. If you listen to Coach Van Horn, the last 2 weeks, you know, they do that thing where they put a mic on him when the game's over. I don't know how they do that. Does he wear the mic the whole game? I don't know.
No.
Maybe they got a little shotgun mic.
They just hold it over there in the huddle.
But what he said to them immediately after the game was over was pretty much what he said the week before when the Alabama series was over. Man, we had to do this, we had to do that, but we did it and we won. So to me, what you look at is the things you had to do to win. What did they have to do? The issue was, and Alyssa and I talked about it because we were on the air right after the first game was over and just as the second game on Friday was starting.
Yeah.
Because they had to have a doubleheader because the Thursday game was wiped out by bad weather. And we talked about the fact that Arkansas, what was it, 11 to 1,
Yeah.
2, something crazy score. I haven't gone back and looked. Arkansas won that, had double-digit runs in that game. Historically, when they do that, they always come back and have 2, 3, 4 runs the next game, which is what happened in game 2. So that's a close game. Now, Dave Van Horn made the decision to pitch Dylan Carter in relief of Holland in that first game. And some people were saying you had a 9-run lead. Why didn't you put Ledbetter or somebody else in there? Why are you putting your best reliever in there? All I know is he said we had to take care of first things first. We got to win the first game. So he's not available in the second game. Now, all of a sudden, when Hagen Smith, who's been a reliever, they tried to get him to go 7, and he didn't. And now all of a sudden you got a problem who you're going to bring in game 2, and boom, they bring in Adcock, and he gives up a home run, and all of a sudden it blows up on him. Ole Miss puts up a big inning, and you can't come back, so you've lost that game, so you got to come back and win game 3. And what do they have to do to win game 3? Well, they needed Caleb Cali. That's what they needed because he hit a home run in the second to give them the lead. Twice more in that game, he gave them the lead, including one of those innings, maybe the third or fourth, where he stole a base, then off a ball in which he should have been thrown out because he's trying to go to third after a hit ball. He's trying to go to third. The guy has him, the shortstop has him dead to rights, but he drops the ball. So he gets to third, and then he scores on a wild pitch. I mean, you just keep putting pressure on the other team. That's what you do. And then he saved a run from third base in which Ole Miss had a runner on first, on the move, on a pitch. Ball gets hit up the middle. He's going to go around to third. Tavian Josenberger tries to throw the guy out at third. Callie's over there. He realizes, I'm not getting this guy, so he moves way out in front of third, cuts the relay off, and fires it back to second, and throws the guy out. Right after that, the next guy hits a double. So instead of scoring 2 runs off that double, they score 1. So he does all of this stuff to help them win. And then what happens, Gage Wood has to come in. He's your freshman. Last week, he faced 4 batters, and they won the game. This time he has to go 3 full innings, right? If you had told me they're going to have to pitch him 3 innings, I'd be, you're dead. He can't do that. But he did. He gave up 1 run in 3 innings. And what happened in the 9th, the bottom of the 9th? What would they, 2-run lead?
Yeah, they had 2-run lead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first hit right off the bat, Jared Wagner out in left field has to make a running, diving catch, or that's a double. All right. The next, Josenberger has to make a running catch.
At the wall, yeah.
At the wall, that's a double. So they rob Ole Miss of 2 doubles back to back. That's probably the game right there. They're probably going to win the game if they get those 2 hits. And then Gage Wood gets the 3rd strikeout, the 3rd out on strikeout. So you do things you probably didn't think you were going to do to win. And what do we have? We have some fans going, they were the last place team, and you had to really struggle to beat them. Now, how good are they? How good is this team? Are they the best team in the West? Probably not. LSU's probably still the best team. LSU had to go to South Carolina and lost 2 of 3. Arkansas still has to play them. Arkansas still has to play Vanderbilt. But Arkansas' schedule is favorable until then. So where do we end up with? I think we may have a graphic here.
Oh, you do. I think you do have a graphic.
Let's look at the remaining schedule. Tennessee this weekend. Oh, that's going to be fun. Vitello comes in.
Vitello.
All right. Let's say they can get 2 of 3 from Tennessee. Georgia. They do go to Georgia, but they ought to win that series. What is that, Minnesota Vikings?
I don't know. It just says Minnesota Vikings there, Mike.
I don't know what got put up there. That's wrong. Mississippi State.
They're playing the Minnesota Vikings all week.
South Carolina and Vanderbilt. South Carolina and Vanderbilt. Forget the Vikings.
Yeah.
And Vanderbilt's the last one. Those last 2 series are tough.
Yeah, Vanderbilt is really tough.
So I kind of took a guess there, and I think they're going to go 11-7 in that stretch. That would make them 19-11 in the SEC. I don't think that will win the West, but I think what it does at 47-17 is it gets you a regional. You're going to host a regional. I don't think you host a super regional unless you win your regional and the other team on the other side loses theirs. So I still think they're going to have to go somewhere else in a super regional to get to Omaha. So what do they have to do to get to Omaha? Gage Wood has to continue to pitch well.
Oh, yeah.
Brady Tiger's got to come back and pitch well because then you have 2 closers. They need to find another reliever. They've got 1 right now. They need 2 good relievers, so they got to find another one. Is it Ledbetter? I don't know. There's several candidates there, but somebody's got to step up. But mainly, this constantly gets overlooked with this team. The plate. They underachieve too much at the plate. If you look at their lineup, they've got 8 guys that can hit home runs because their catcher can hit a home run. And the other 7 position players can all hit home runs. And I mean hit big, titanic home runs. So you got 7 real home run hitters, another guy that can hit home runs. They all hit well for an average. You get all those guys hitting consistently, there's nobody they can't beat with better pitching. So, yeah, they can get to Omaha, but maybe they won't either. Just speculation right now.
That's what Dave Van Horn said after Game 3. Baseball's a funny sport, right? It can humble you.
Very funny.
It's a very funny sport. So
very different.
I go back and say that to H.L. McCamish, that anything can happen on any given day. Mousetown says, and this is another baseball question here, after a miscommunication on a drop pop-up cost Arkansas a national championship in baseball, I assume DVH would never let that happen again. Like every practice would include communication drills between various position players. And the question continues, right fielder, second baseman, catcher, first baseman, etc. In Game 2 of the Ole Miss series, we had 2 of these things and both led to runs. It's poor fundamentals and it keeps happening. Why, Mike?
It happens to all teams. I promise you they work on that. But how many times when we talked about basketball, remember how I kept talking about Musselman? They acted like because they did certain things in the game that they did them in practice, and he wasn't coaching them not to do it in practice.
Yeah, like free throws. Oh, they don't work on free throws in practice.
I mean, they work on this stuff. I don't know how many people out there have ever played baseball and been in a situation where you're looking up now. You can sort of see who's around you, but you got to keep your eye on the ball so you're just vaguely aware of them. You don't know if you're about to run into somebody, they're about to run into you, so you're trying to avoid that. Then you say, well, that's where the communication comes in. Okay, if you were out there and there was nobody in the stands, easy. People are out there, they're making noise. You can't always hear them. And even if you hear them, what are they saying? Who's saying what? If you get 3 people in the mix, 3 people can be talking at the same time and you can't figure out who's saying what, where, how, who. This can happen. It's just what happens when there are pop-ups. And Arkansas, in my opinion, does not have an inordinate number of those things. It's the first time that's happened this year, where it looked like, and there's no question, if they don't have those 2 drop balls, they might win the game. Yeah. Dave Van Horn was mad about it. He said this is unacceptable. No, he called it ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But it also happens all the time in baseball. So I promise you they work on it, and it's not going to go away, and it will happen again in the future at some point. I promise you.
It will happen. Don't get PTSD over it, all right? Arkansas fans, Hog Redneck says, Dave Van Horn has been using Hagen Smith as a reliever. Friday, he started him against Ole Miss, but pitched him too long. You could tell that he was struggling in the 6th. If he had gone to the bullpen, I don't think Ole Miss would have put up that 5 spot. You just talked about
never
that.
going to know what would have happened there, but again, the reason that he had to do that is you're looking at who do I have left, and you're also having to consider, if I use somebody now, what happens tomorrow? And you're just making those decisions. You bring in Adcock when you bring him in, and then all of a sudden the game gets out of hand. I promise you this happens to all coaches at all times. Baseball is a sport that requires decisions like that all the time, and you're never going to get all of them right. I'm sure Dave Van Horn would tell you sometimes he makes decisions, and if he could go back and change it, he would change it. But you don't get to do that.
Well, hindsight is 20/20, right?
Yeah.
So you don't get to do that. Valley Hog 10 wants to know, what is your best guess as to whether Devo, Walsh, the Mitchell twins, Dunning, and Ford return for the 2023-24 season? Well, some of those guys have announced their decisions this weekend.
Okay, so rather than do that, we got graphics. Let's just do the whole scenario.
Okay,
right?
let's do it.
Okay, let's start with the players who won't be back. Kamani Johnson has used up his eligibility. Nick Smith Jr. is declared for the NBA. Ricky Council IV is declared for the draft. Mikhail Mitchell has entered the transfer portal. Now, Devo Davis, he's entered the NBA draft pool, but has indicated he could return to the team depending on the feedback he gets during the draft evaluation process. Now, there are 3 Razorbacks who have not announced their plans. At the top of the list, Anthony Black. Almost all of the Hog media, we just had a discussion about this in here a few minutes ago, almost all of us say that he's gone. But there are people on the internet, some of them students, some of them who have these little, fans get together and create their little own internet websites.
They do.
And they say they had inside information, and maybe they do. Maybe they know, Black. Maybe they know what he's going to do. I don't know. But some of them are saying he's coming back. I mean,
sorry,
I guess.
I get cool. I mean, we'll find out right this week, Mike. He said in another video at his basketball camp.
Now, Jordan Walsh, he's the interesting part to me, because right after the season was over, I would have told you he's coming back. I mean, he's not ready. I mean, he doesn't show up on any draft boards. He's a guy that should come back. But he hasn't announced, and there's a lot of speculation about what's going on with him, and nobody seems to know, or at least know enough that they're willing to say, yeah, this is what's going on, like us. So here's the thing. Some people think that he's going to test the NBA waters. Other people say he might transfer.
I know.
You don't like it, you can transfer.
He might
Remember
transfer.
that story? We
Yes.
told that on this show one time.
We did.
He might transfer, or he might come back. Nobody seems to know. There's a big question mark there with Walsh. And then Mikhail Mitchell, what's going on with him? Some people think that the decision on that will be made if Muss brings in another big man.
Yeah.
We already know they've got 6'10" guy, Bayfall, coming in as a freshman. They've got Trevin Brazil coming back. If you brought in another big forward or a center, whatever, now there's 4 of them. Maybe he looks at that and goes, well, I'm probably not going to play much, so I will leave.
Right.
So I think Mekhi Mitchell hasn't made an announcement yet because he's not sure of what's going on with the portal. That's my guessing on
I think so. I think you're right on that one.
Players returning. We know that Brazil's coming back. We've mentioned that. Jalen Graham, that was a surprise to me.
Super surprise to me.
Didn't that surprise you?
Yeah.
Because all we heard during the season was, a guy doesn't play defense, that's why he's on the bench. Because fans would get mad. He'd come in and hit a couple of quick baskets, and then he'd be on the bench, and fans would be mad. What's wrong? He's our best offensive center. That's what they'd say. But he didn't play defense. So we figured if you don't play defense, you're gone.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he's not gone. So the only thing I can speculate is that he sat down and had a meeting with Eric Musselman, and they figured out that he's going to play better defense next year because he's announced he's coming back. Now, we also speculated about the 3 freshmen. These are the 3 non-McDonald's All-American freshmen that came in as a part of that 6 freshman class. And Pinion then jumped up and announced he was coming back, then Darian Ford and Barry Dunning. You and I differ on this a little bit. I think Barry Dunning Jr. has indicated he's coming back because he didn't put up something on the internet that said, "I'm coming back" in big bold letters.
I never said he wasn't coming back. I even tweeted out, looks like Barry Dunning Jr. is returning.
But when you talk to me, you're saying, well, I'm not willing to say he's coming back.
Yeah, because he didn't explicitly say, I am coming back.
So he posted what?
A picture of him
that said home
on the court at Bud Walton Arena saying home.
Okay. And you're saying that home could be anywhere?
No, I'm saying he didn't
home
explicitly.
Could be Idaho State.
He didn't explicitly say it, Mike, so I'm not going to put words into his mouth. I hope so. I hope that seems like he's coming back. And I think you have one more graphic, right? Or no, is that
Yeah,
you
these
have one
are
more.
new players. New players coming in. Bayfall, 5-star, 6'10" forward coming in. Layden Blocker, right?
Yes, yeah.
He's a true point guard coming in, 6'2" point guard. And then Keon
Keon Mennefield.
Mennefield. He's a 6'1" point guard transfer from Washington. And is it Tremont?
It is Tremont. There you go.
Tremont Mark, a 6'5" big guard from Houston.
Yeah.
Those are the guys, the new players coming in. Now, what's interesting at this point is you have 4 guys we know are leaving and 4 guys we know are coming in. So right now, as we sit here right now, it's all even. But let's go back to the undecideds. How many of them were there? There were 4.
There was undecided? No.
No.
3. Anthony Black, Mekhi.
Well, you got to throw Devo into that.
You got to throw Devo. Yes, you got to throw Devo.
So
I always forget about Devo.
you got 4 players that we don't know definitely what they're going to do. And so you could end up with 4 more portal, 3 more portal transfers, 2 more portal transfers, 1 more portal transfer. All of those are on the table, all of those possibilities.
Tex Hog 188 asks, how hot is Coach Mike Neighbors' seat going into this offseason? There's been a lot of hype surrounding the program with the last 2 recruiting classes, but results have been disappointing, to say the least. Everyone seems to like Coach Neighbors, but is this a Mike Anderson situation where ultimately you have to be judged on your postseason performance?
I would say it's exactly a Mike Anderson situation. Nice guy, everybody likes him. At some point, that doesn't matter. I don't know what point that is, but I would say that he's probably got to produce next year. Now, again, I'm not Hunter Yurachek, but here's the thing. Just like Mike Anderson, Hunter Yurachek did not hire Mike Neighbors. That always, to me, is a factor when you're talking about an AD, because he wouldn't be getting rid of somebody that he hired, admitting he made a mistake. It's somebody else hired this guy. So I think he knows. I think Mike Neighbors knows there's pressure for next year. And what does that mean? What does he have to do? What do you think he has to do? To me, I think he's got to do well in the SEC. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it means finishing in the top 4 or 5 or that high. But I do think you have to do better than he's been doing. And then I think they've got to make the NCAA tournament and win a game at least, maybe 2. Show some progress.
I think you at least have to give him this year, because you have to see what he's got with some of the girls coming back, and then you have that McDonald's All-American coming in from Florida. I think you have to at least see what happens this year, right? At least give him this year?
Oh, yeah. Well,
yeah, okay.
Nothing's happened. So.
No, I know, but we're just, if we were in the AD spot, We got to see what happens this year.
I'm talking what he has to do next year, and I think he's got to show some definite progress. And to me, that means getting to the NCAA tournament, winning a game, maybe even two, and at least being very competitive in the SEC.
Yeah.
You know?
I think you're right.
You got to play South Carolina and LSU competitive games. They played LSU one competitive game, just got blown out in the first one.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens this upcoming season. S. Giles asked, what is the #1 thing you want to see in Saturday's spring football game, Mike?
Well, again, I've talked about this before. The big change is Dan Enos' offense, the big change on offense. Now, it looks like to me what he's done is, he's more of a pro-style guy, which involves taking a snap underneath, doing your play-action pass, which is very different from taking the ball in a shotgun, standing and handing the ball off to somebody to the right or left of you. So I think they all understand that KJ has spent his entire time here in Kendall Briles' offense. So they're still doing a lot of what Kendall Briles did as a comfort factor. But apparently, according to the players, they've added some other stuff. We haven't seen any of that stuff, at least I haven't. I haven't been to every practice. Maybe some of the other media guys have seen this. I have not seen him take a snap under center. I've not seen the running backs have to do the exchange on a rollout. So I don't know how that's going. I would like to see that in the spring game, but I'm not sure if they're going to do that in the spring game.
They may not show that off.
They may not show it, and they may continue to work on it this summer, because you can have some summer workouts and then do the rest of it in fall camp. I don't know, but that's what I would be looking for, is just to see evidence of the new stuff that Dan Enos has brought in, because what I've seen so far, it looks like Kendall Briles' offense.
Interesting.
We were out there the whole practice, and we watched them go 11 on 11, and what I saw looked a lot like what I've seen before, which is understandable why you do that, but I know there's more to it than that, and we just haven't seen it.
Yeah, maybe they weren't showing it, especially because you were allowed to stay the whole practice on Saturday.
Yeah, they don't want me to see it.
They don't want you to see it, Mike. They're hiding it from you. They're trying to surprise you.
By the way, on the way over here, I went and got lunch, and I'm going down MLK, and here comes Sam Pittman with two of his coaches where they go on that walking tour.
Yeah.
He was walking way too close to the street, man. He's on the grass right next to the curb. I started to pull over and say, Coach, get over.
Get over.
You get run over.
We don't want Coach getting run over anytime soon. Yeah. So, Mike, you didn't tell him? You didn't roll down your window?
No, I was going by too fast.
Oh, okay.
What's he doing? He's right by me.
Well, Pork Tongue wants to know, nice name, given salaries for coaches and other expenses that continue to increase for college football, do you think the TV and other revenues will offset it enough for tickets to remain somewhat affordable for the average Arkansas fan?
I don't think TV revenue has anything to do with it. TV revenue, I think the athletic department goes, wow, here's some more money. Now, I don't want to make them sound like a bunch of greedy people, because look, what they're trying to do is win in the SEC in all sports, and that takes money.
Yeah. So
the TV revenue, you're in an arms race. The whole SEC is in an arms race. Every time somebody builds a new facility for this, somebody else builds an even better one. And it just keeps going and going again. Arkansas puts up that big baseball thing. I promise you, in the next 3 to 4 years, a bunch of other SEC teams will have something as good or better. All that costs money. Then you've got coaches' salaries. They go up all the time. I mean, Sam Pittman got a big raise, and now he's back down near the bottom in the SEC coaches' salaries in football. What's Musselman going to have? Is he going to get a new raise? Where does he compare? So you're constantly having to raise those coaches' salaries. And I guarantee you, when Sam Pittman brought all these new coaches in, they didn't pay him peanuts.
No, that costs money too.
So that costs money. And then you got NIL, which is the new factor. All of that starts to factor in, because if money goes to NIL for these players, it's money that's not going to the athletic department, it's going to the players. So it's an arms race. Now, when Texas and Oklahoma come into the SEC, the TV contract gets better. You know what? They take that money and spend it, because that's the way it happens. Now, as far as ticket prices, here's the whole thing about ticket prices. It's all supply and demand. If your ticket price is too high, people won't show up. They just won't. They'll just go, I'm not paying that.
Yeah.
But if you're winning, what are they going to do? They're going to pay it anyway, because they're winning and you want to go to the game. Now, there is one thing looming in the future that I think will lower ticket prices. And I've talked about it before. And it is a growing trend for season ticket holders, in especially football, to buy a big giant screen TV, get a 4K, 8K screen, and tailgate at home and have their friends over and have everything, backyard barbecue. You got restrooms, you got no parking problems. You don't have to deal with traffic to and from the game. You're sitting there looking at a product that looks almost like you're looking out of a skybox, but except that the TV takes you down on the field and then puts you back upstairs, gives you all the stats, shows you replays, things you can't get when you're sitting in the stadium. And it's a lot of people I talk to have already done that. They've already given up their season tickets and said, man, I bought this giant TV and it's great. The one thing that hasn't happened is that ESPN, NBC, CBS, they haven't gone to 4K yet.
Yeah.
When they do, now you and I are on a YouTube TV package.
We've talked about it before, our family deal.
And I talked you guys, you and Will, into paying extra for the 4K stuff.
Yeah.
But the problem was we only got about one game a week.
One game.
But didn't it look great?
It did look great.
And
it was great.
What was the best part about it? What did I tell you the best part about it?
It sounded like you were there. Sound is...
It's surround sound, and I can adjust the surround sound, and I can turn the announcers down, and you're just barely hearing them, but it's like you're at the game. Yeah. And I hate announcers anyway, so you don't hear that. And then if there's a review or something, I can turn it back up with my remote and hear what the explanation is, for the on the review, and then turn it back down because I want to hear their stories about what they did last week. I want to watch the game. I'm telling you, when you watch a game in 4K with surround sound, the way I was doing on some of those games, it was unbelievable. I loved it. So that's coming, and when it does, it's going to put a real dent in ticket sales, I think.
Yeah, well, they're going to still try and fill the seats.
I think what will happen is you'll have fewer seats. They'll probably have more loge boxes and take seats out. And they'll still charge high prices, but they'll be for better seats. And the average schmo like me that would be out there plunking down money for $50 to go to a game, he'll be watching at home on television.
Yeah, I think you're right. But you still, if you're the university, you still want to fill those seats, so that will drive ticket prices down if people don't come to the games.
I think rather than that, I think they'll have fewer people there.
Okay.
And still try to get big bucks.
But won't it affect the atmosphere? You think it'll affect the atmosphere?
That's inevitable. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. You can't keep drawing. I mean, we're seeing empty seats in places like Texas A&M and Alabama because people have discovered TV, 4K TV, and some of them aren't even getting a 4K TV, but they still like it, what they see with a big giant screen TV. And can you imagine an 8K, 85-inch monitor? It's 8K, and what that looks like.
Well, I don't know what an 8K is, but I believe it.
They make them.
They make 8K these days?
8K TVs.
Holy moly.
I mean, they're really expensive, like $20,000, but what if you were spending that for your skybox?
Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, but call me old-fashioned. I still like going to the games in person.
I did for 40-something years, but I don't go to football games very much anymore. It's kind of a hassle.
Yeah, I get that.
I still like going to Baum Stadium. I still like sneaking into Bud Walton.
Yeah.
It's not quite as a big a problem as trying to get into football, but you reach a point after so many years where you just go, I can watch it. There's a real convenience to just sitting there at your house and going, oh, I think I'll go to the refrigerator now and get me some really good food, and guess what? It won't cost me $48.
True.
Do you know what they're charging people for hamburgers?
I don't.
At Baum Stadium?
How much?
I'm not going to say, but I'm just because they're nice people. But I'm just telling you that the idea that you could sit there at home and make your own hamburger and make it for about $2.
But you're paying for the atmosphere. You're paying an extra $5 to eat a hamburger at Baum Walker Stadium.
Well, I'm just answering the question about ticket prices, and I think they will eventually I don't know that they'll come down, but there'll be fewer people in there buying those tickets.
I turned this into an argument of watching the game at home or going to the game in person.
Which is what happens on this show.
And hey, that's okay. We differ on that. I'm old-fashioned, okay? I like going to see it in person.
You will reach a point where you don't feel that way.
You call me in 30 years and we'll find out. All right,
Won't be around, but whatever.
No, Mike, you will be. Pat Boat wants to know,
100 maybe.
With the depth in the wide receiver room, do you think it's possible every guy scores a touchdown this year? What's the number for different wide receiver scores in a season?
Do you know how many? There's 12 receivers listed on the roster. You think every one of them is going to score a touchdown?
There's 12 of them on the roster?
12 of them on the roster. I don't
more
know.
than I
They're
thought
probably
there were.
not all scholarship. Let's say 8 of them are on scholarship.
Yeah.
You think 8 guys are going to score a touchdown pass? I would say no. That's not going to happen. Now, I went back and looked just to check, back a few years. Most of the time, the number of receivers, now, because we're taking out tight ends and running backs,
Right.
the number of receivers who will catch a touchdown pass usually varies between 4 and 5 from year to year. Sometimes, occasionally, it might be 6. So, here's my guess, and I think it's going to be 5. Did I list 5 or 4?
I think you have a.
Yeah,
you
I
have
got
5.
5 there.
You have, no.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
these
you
are
have
my,
5.
These are my 5. Isaiah Satania, he redshirted as a freshman. He's a speed receiver. He's been really impressive this spring. Isaac Tisley, right? Tisley.
Tisley, yeah, that's
Tall Division II transfer with great arms, hands, has made that beautiful catch we keep looking at on the internet. He's also looking good. Andrew Armstrong, the A&M Commerce transfer, had over 1,000 yards in catches last season. He's been impressive. Bryce Stevens caught a touchdown pass last year, so it's reasonable to assume he'll catch at least one more. And Sam Mbake, I think he'll catch one this year.
Okay, I like that. The Sam is like a kind of a dark horse pick to catch one. I like that one.
So that's 5, and I don't think it goes above 5. In some years it's 4, so it's not going to be 12 guys or whatever we talked about.
No, I think we'll see if that comes true. I'm going to bring up that graphic in football season. We'll tick it off.
Those are my picks.
We'll tick them off if
tick them off one at a time.
Exactly. And Dr. Strangepork says the world knows about JFB's coaching tree. Why ESPN hasn't done a 30 for 30 about it is crazy. With the success of a lot of former staff members, who were the ones that you would have thought to have success but never really did in actuality?
Well, I assume 2 things. First of all, he's not just talking about guys on Frank Broyle's staff, because I wasn't around most of them. I only covered Frank the last 2 years. So any assistant coach at Arkansas that I thought would become a successful head coach, and there's one that just jumps out at me. Whittle Wayne Kiffin's daddy, Monty.
Really?
Monty Kiffin had a really great start to his career. He started off as a grad assistant at Nebraska. Within 3 years, he went from grad assistant to defensive coordinator, a huge jump. Then he went from there to Arkansas. Left Arkansas to become the head coach at North Carolina State. If you had asked me at that time, is this guy going to be successful? I said, are you talking? Are you kidding? I mean, Whittle Wayne was just Whittle Wayne back then.
Whittle Wayne.
And I would be saying, my goodness, I mean, look what he's done in a short period of time. Yeah, he's going to tear it up. He might even come back to Arkansas someday and be the head coach. He was at North Carolina State for 3 years.
Okay.
Had a losing record, 16 and 17, and his teams never went to a bowl game. And then he was fired. He ends up being a career assistant coach, getting hired for a lot of jobs. He didn't really stay any one place very long, but he had to be successful. He wouldn't keep getting hired somewhere else.
Yeah.
Let's just take a look at some of the places where he worked, and this is as a defensive coordinator. Nebraska, Arkansas, which I mentioned. Then in the NFL at Buffalo, New Orleans, and Tampa Bay, and then back at the college level at Tennessee and Southern Cal, and finally with the Dallas Cowboys. He was also a linebackers coach with 4 NFL teams, Green Bay, Buffalo, Minnesota, and the Jets.
Wow.
And then, those are the 4. It surprises me that he didn't win as a head coach. I still look back on that and go, I don't have any answers to what happened there. The most common reason for that is that there are certain things you have to do as a head coach that don't translate, or as an assistant coach that you do well. There are things you have to do as a head coach that you didn't have to do as an assistant coach. The best example of that I can give is Jack Crow. He was very analytic as an offensive coordinator. He was a mathematician in college and genius with numbers and analytics and all this stuff. He could sit down and draw up an offense and make it work. But as a head coach, you have to relate to your players. And he was more of a, have you ever been around a math major?
Yes.
I dated a math major one time.
Really?
It was like, yeah. It was like, whoa. Strange person. I mean, they're always wrapped up in numbers and stuff.
They are.
And what players kept telling me about Jack Crow was they just didn't feel close to him. They didn't feel a connection. It was like he was this guy over here dreaming up all this stuff, but he was in the room. Hey, what's he doing in there? And a head coach, this is the number one thing Sam Pittman does. He relates to his players. They feel like, each one of them feels like they have a one-on-one relationship with him. That's what makes you, in part, a successful head coach. And that's usually what's missing in a coordinator that doesn't develop into a head coach. I don't know that about Monty. That's been so many years when he left here. I was 2 or 3 years in my career here. I mean, I was still in my 20s when he left. So that's been a long time ago. But at that time, I remember thinking, man, that guy's going to be really successful as a head coach, and he never was.
I saw the Minnesota Vikings on that previous graphic, so I solved the mystery of why the Minnesota Vikings was on that baseball schedule graphic, right?
Because it got put in there twice.
Exactly. I solved the mystery if everyone was wondering why that showed up on our other
Probably
graphic.
got left over from a previous.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. I solved the mystery right there.
If you'd been here to help, you could have spotted that.
Mike, you keep saying that.
I needed someone to do
spell check,
proofreading.
Graphic check. I try to do that for you, but Whippersnapper asks, this is our final question of the show for you guys. What are 3 to 5 sporting events you haven't witnessed in person that you would like to attend someday? Mike?
First, there aren't 3 to 5.
Oh, okay. How many?
There are only 2.
Okay.
Because I've been to a lot of things that I wanted to see. I've been to a national championship game in basketball involving Arkansas. I've been to several track meets involving a national championship involving Arkansas. I have not been to a national championship football game involving Arkansas, and I would like to do that. It's probably not going to happen, but man, can you imagine what that would be like?
That'd be so much fun.
To the national championship game and Arkansas is in it. That's what I would like to see. And there's one other thing I haven't been to, and I promise you it's never going to happen.
Okay.
I would like to go see the British Open at St. Andrews, and here's why. It's the oldest golf course in the world. It was the first golf course. Here's how the game of golf got started there. And here's what happened. You have a seaport at St. Andrews that's about a mile from the city. So the sailors were having, and this is back in the 1400s, they would have to dock there and walk all the way into the city, 1 mile, or maybe a little more than a mile. And they get bored. They want something to do while they're walking along. So they started hitting rocks with sticks, and they would have contests and bet on how many strokes of the stick will it take me to knock this rock all the way into St. Andrews. And if it was 80 or 100, and the other guys, he's 82 or 104, whatever, they're betting. Yeah. And it turns it into a contest, and it kills time. The problem with that was that they would lose. They would lose count on their strokes. And then they'd start arguing. Wait a minute, that was 85. No, it was 82. And they'd get in arguments. So they were going, what are we going to do? This is too complicated. So they came up with a system where, okay, how many times do I have to hit this rock to get to that hill over there? Okay, 4. Yeah. I win that part. I win that part. Now the next part, how many whacks does it take me to get over to this sand dune? 6. Okay, you had 5. You win that part. And then they would go. And there were certain landmarks that they would go, and that's how the system of holes got started.
That makes sense.
And this all developed over 100 years or more. And then all of a sudden, one day, they just turned it into golf and came up with the golf holes. That golf course has a bridge on it that knights walked across on the way to the Crusades.
Wow.
You remember the pictures of Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus standing on that bridge over the Swilkenburn? Yeah. That bridge is that old. Wow. The road hole. I want to stand over by the road hole and watch some professional golfer try to hit out of the road hole bunker, which is about 15 feet over your head. And not just hit out, but then it has to land on that green, which is right next to the bunker, and not roll off and go over to the road hole and hit the brick wall and come back. I want to see all that stuff, but I won't. So I just watch it on TV.
No, you're going to go there one day. I know it. I can feel it. You say it's never going to happen. We're going to make it happen. Mike, we're going to make it. I'm sure there's someone sitting out there right now that's like, I'm going to fund Mike Irwin to go to the British Open.
That would be, I had a dream one night. Oh. This is honest truth. That I was 15 years old and I had won the U.S. Amateur. And as a result of that, I got to play in the British Amateur.
That's awesome.
And when I was 15, a guy in my hometown flew me over there. We got on a train in London and had to go all night on a train, and I woke up and I saw St. Andrews the first time at sunrise, but I had to play 2 hours later, and I won.
You did?
Yeah, it was in, well, in your
there
dreams.
you
In your
go.
dreams, you always win, right?
Oh, maybe. Sometimes I lose in my dreams, but
No,
that's
I
just-
won the British Open when I was 15, or the British Amateur when I was 15
wow.
at St. Andrews.
Look at you. You're
Wasn't it
obviously-
amazing?
That was amazing. I promise you, I think you're going to get it. If you want to do that, Mike, you should be able to go do that. All right?
That's the one. Those are the two that I would like to see.
I love it. I love it. That's going to do it for this week's Ask Mike. We'll see you next Monday to answer more of your questions.